Awesome. Well, again, good morning. So welcome to the May conversation. This morning, I want to introduce to you Greg Clark from Encore Wealth Management. He's the business development director and has worked in the financial service industry for the past 30 years. He has a bachelor's from Murray State and then an MAT from Bellarmine, and is currently working on his PhD from Newburgh Theological Seminary. So we welcome him this morning to learn about more about financial wellness in the workplace. So with that, we'll give our attention over to him.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate you having me here. Shout out to Sonia. Walter. This got started a few years ago. Sonia and I met, I believe, at a Chamber of Commerce function, and we were talking about wellness. The physical wellness, obviously, which your health benefits, your gym memberships, but we also talked about financial wellness because financial matters are a source of stress for a lot of employees. So we've been talking about this program, and Sonia's come in and talked to our clients about stress. So I appreciate the partnership. Plus her husband fixes my back every so often. So that's also appreciated as well. So again, let's just kind of go into this. I've got a few slides and I'm going to read you just a few statistics, but I want this to be conversational. I'm not going to give you a whole lot of detail. You don't have to take notes unless you want to maybe jot down a question or whatever, but your organization has my contact information. So certainly if you do want additional information or any details about what we talked today, I'd be glad to share that with you. So let's go ahead and get started then. And everybody can see my PowerPoint. Good. So Mary, I appreciate the introduction, so I'm not going to bore you with that as well. Except for the very last line there, my wife, children, and a new grandson. So this is a picture of my family over Christmas, my son and daughter, my son-in-law, my wife, and then our dog, if you can see him as well. His name's Goon. But this was taken at Christmas. And the reason that my daughter is sitting down is because she is pregnant. And lo and behold, on February the 26th, she produced our first grandchild. So we're thrilled about that. So let's go ahead and get started then. So what is financial wellness? Well, it's actually three components. What does it mean for you? Well, there's the three components, and these are what I'll be discussing here today is financial education. And I'm going to talk about this component for the most part. That's going to take up the bulk of this particular conversation because I think it's the most important. If you looked at my background, I've got a background not just in financial services, but also education. And I'm one of those guys that I'm in the twilight of my career. So I'm going to go on to something else. I'm never going to retire, but it's probably going to be something in the form of education. So let's go back and talk about financial education for a little bit. But before we do that, I wanted to give you an overview. And again, I told you I wasn't going to give you a whole lot of information, and please stop me at any time if you have a question. But why should you or why would you offer a financial wellness program in your particular business or company? So there was a study that was done by Price Waterhouse Cooper in 2017, and it stated that 53% of workers report that they are stressed with their finances. What's interesting about that? Well, two things that are interesting about that. This survey was conducted in 2017. I have a feeling if this was conducted post-pandemic, that number would be higher. But of the 53% of those workers that are reporting being financially stressed, most of those are younger and female, which I thought was kind of interesting. So all generations, I'm obviously a baby boomer. There's a lot of millennials in the workplace right now too, but all of us are reporting, financial matters to be a top concern for stress, obviously other than, any physical issues that you might have. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to help companies and individuals reduce those stressors when it comes to, the financial matters. So just a few fun facts here, and then we'll move on. But financial stress actually does cost your company a lot of money through 4 or 5 different things, but just briefly, loss of productivity. So, workers that are under financial stress, they're thinking about this at work, believe it or not. In fact, there's an average of 20 to 28 hours a month where people are worried about their particular financial issue. And that can cost, employers as much as $7,000 a year. Workplace accidents. So 60 to 80% of job accidents are stress related. Health and welfare issues, 75 to 90% of all doctor visits are stress related. That can cost you $300 a day per employee. Employee turnover, that's always a factor as well, but 40% of employee turnover is due to stress. And HR department distractions, you're handling calls from bill collectors, maybe you're processing 401k loans, processing wage garnishments, and so on. So, you really don't have the time if you're an HR person to be doing that. So companies that have offered, some sort of a financial wellness program, they will notice things like increased productivity and satisfaction, by providing, basic financial literacy education to your employees, your productivity is shown to increase. You can increase performance for all employees. Education programs increase employee performance, increase retirement income. I talk to young folks all the time, and there's two things. They'll tell me, well, I don't need health insurance because I'm healthy, and I'm too young to start saving for retirement. Well, we know those are false, but those are some of the things that we can talk about. So that's just kind of a nutshell on why you might want to offer such a program. So how do we deal with financial education? There's actually two platforms that I kind of use there. One of them is my association with the Association of Financial Educators. That is a nonprofit group that I'm associated with, and we work, directly with human resources departments and companies. We're advisors, we're volunteers. One of my responsibilities at my company is, we have to record a certain number of volunteer hours, and I do community outreach. That's just stuff that we like to do. So this is a way that I think we can benefit the community at large by providing financial education services. So I have access to the Association of Financial Educators to over 150 workshops. And I will tell you, a lot of times, if you're talking to a financial advisor, there might be a conception that, well, we're only going to talk to wealthy people. Well, that's not true. Obviously, we will talk to wealthy people, but a lot of the programs are for, folks that are just getting started, people that are living, from paycheck to paycheck, people that are talking about, how do I save for a down payment on a house? How do I apply for a loan? What about my children's education? So there's a lot of financial matters that don't have to do, with investing. So those programs are out there. I'm glad to do them. I've been doing them for years. But if anybody's interested, I can, again, give you more information, but just some of the workshops that we can offer. And I will tell you, with things opening up, we can do these on site. They're about 30 minutes. You can do them, at lunchtime, or certainly if you're kind of spread out. It looks like Zoom meetings are here to stay. They are convenient, particularly, if you want to do something in multiple locations. But just a few of the examples of some of the workshops that we can do: investing basics, you can imagine that, your financial future, Social Security, cash management, life insurance, budgeting, college planning, understanding IRAs, IRA mistakes that a lot of people make, and retirement. Again, if you're 20 years old and you take just a very small portion of your pre-tax income, and again, that's another thing that I'll explain was what's the difference between pre-tax and after-tax. 30, 40 years, you can have a sizable amount of money. There's also strategies for folks that are maybe 50, 55. Is it too late to save for my retirement? Well, the answer is no. There's some strategies. You're not, totally behind the eight ball there. So that's just an example of some of the cases. But I mean, I was in junior achievement, 40 years ago. And when I first got into banking in the late 80s, I actually volunteered my time with junior achievement, and we would, talk about things. my son didn't know how to write a check, which I know that's not that big of a skill now, but or address an envelope. So I can tell you that, you know, financial education, it's really not happening in the schools. And as they're getting into the workforce, I think a lot of the younger folks, you know, find this beneficial. Um, you know, what do I do with all this student loan debt? You know, that's a big one. So I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions, but that's just kind of a brief overview of why you might want to have, you know, financial wellness, and then some of the topics, you know, that we could cover. And I will tell you that as a member, if I'm doing a workshop with the Association of Financial Educators, I have signed a contract. There will be no selling going on. And then even in our other platform that we use for financial wellness, there is no selling going on. So what do we get from it? Well, a couple of things. I just mentioned, you know, we do community outreach. You know, it builds our network. If I go meet some people, I'd not met those people before. One day they may need services. So I've just discovered, you know, being 61 years old, that if you put good out, good will come back to you. And our firm is large enough, we're not worried about revenue or where our next commission check's going to come from. So we're just kind of building, you know, for the future. A lot of our clients, we're working with their children, even their grandchildren. You know, they don't have any money, but they obviously need some advice for when they do get money. This millennial organization is going to inherit more money that's ever existed in the world at any time. So I think it's very important, you know, that they're educated. With that being said, we'll talk to anybody. Even though we're a large firm, our investment minimum is 0, and that's unusual for firms that are our size. So I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions, but that's kind of the financial education component. That's the part that I probably have the most heart for as well. Okay. Financial planning. So I do have a formal financial education, or actually financial wellness program. It's offered through Ameriprise. So in addition to the financial education piece, and again, I've got webinars and seminars and material, you know, on that platform as well. But one of the aspects of our Ameriprise platform is we have a signed agreement. It doesn't obligate you to anything, but it obligates us to something. So if we're doing a seminar or webinar or whatever, and you have employees that have questions, then financial planning is one of the things that we can offer them. And I will tell you, with a lot of millennials in the workplace, you know, they're just getting started, but we do offer a consultation, you know, with a financial advisor. Again, no obligations. Most of the time when we're talking to a younger person, we're just getting them started. We're giving them a roadmap, you know, of how to get there. And we may not ever see them again, or we may not see them again for 10 or 12 years, but hopefully, you know, we're kind of building a basis for them at that juncture. So financial advice, financial planning, you know, that's also a good component of a financial wellness program. The third piece that I mentioned are financial tools and resources. So if we have a formal financial wellness agreement with you, you will have 24/7 access to our website that has financial tools and resources. Again, things like my son is one to go to, we want to send our son to Harvard in 40 years. Can we do that? How much do we need to save? So there's tools that they can access. And I know the younger folks, they like the YouTube videos and the financial tools, but that'll help them do that. Or, you know, I'm 25, I want to retire when I'm 60. How much money do I have to save for the next several years to get $1 million? So all that stuff's available too on our website. So again, just kind of summarize what I was talking about. With a good financial wellness program will start and maybe even end, depending on what you need with financial education. Certainly, if you want to take it a little bit deeper, you know, we can talk about financial advice, planning, and then financial tools and resources. Again, no obligation on your part, no matter what we do. So just kind of want to give you a brief overview of one of the topics that we can discuss. This is a recent topic, and you might say, well, this has already happened. Well, there's talk that there might be some more, you know, stimulus checks coming out there. So one of the things that we might talk about is, you know, what am I going to do with my stimulus money? Well, there's 5 ways that you can put your stimulus money to use. So again, as part of the 2021 American Rescue Plan, and I think this happened a couple of times for some folks, you got a stimulus payment of up to $1,400 per individual, provided you met the eligibility rules for that. And these payments actually represented tax-free benefits to the individuals that may have been affected, by the COVID pandemic. So you get a check, what do you want to do with it? Well, obviously the government, one of the things that the government wants you to do is spend it, to help the economy. And that's certainly something that you can do. But, there's other things that you might want to do with that stimulus check. And then I know that when we're talking to clients, a lot of times people say, oh, the financial advisors, they want to manage my assets. But the very first thing that we always talk about, whether it's a stimulus check, a windfall, or you've saved enough money, is you want to put your debt behind you. So if you're carrying debt, particularly high interest rate credit card debt, which can be 18% and up, one of the best investments you can do is to pay that off or pay it down. And, if you've got credit card debt that's got an 18% interest rate on there, you pay that balance down to zero, then you got an 18% return on your money. So that's one of the best investment advices that I can ever tell anybody to do is let's look at that debt first, okay? Increase your retirement savings. If you're not saving for retirement, maybe this windfall is something that you can use to maximize your contributions at your retirement plan. At work, if you have one, whether it's a simple IRA or 401k, or open up your own IRA. Again, the longer you save, the more money you can have at the end when you're getting close to retirement. Depending on your tax situation, there's also a benefit, if you contribute, to an IRA. I'm all for people, paying their fair share of taxes, but I always tell people to pay themselves first. Number 3, give yourself some breathing room. I have talked to clients before, and they're wanting to invest, but they have not established a savings account or an emergency fund. That's the first thing we tell anyone, is that they need to have a savings account that has at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. If you do get laid off, or if there is a pandemic, you got a little bit of breathing room. And once you get past that, if you get to 6 to 9 months worth of monthly expenses, and we'll help them calculate all this, or even up to a year, that just reduces a lot of stress knowing that you've got funds that you can fall back on. You don't have to, run up the credit cards. You don't have to borrow money. And that's just the best investment advice I can ever give, is have people make sure they save their money first and reduce debt. Tap your charitable side. Charitable organizations during the pandemic, they're struggling. They're not getting, nearly the funds that they're used to getting. So they can obviously use our help too. One of the tax law changes now, you are going to get a tax deduction, for a certain amount, $300 or $600 for married couples. So tap your charitable side. Last thing you can do, pursue a dream. You know what? You've taken care of all these other things, spend that money. Money's a tool. It's not the end to means, and, it's to be enjoyed. So that's the 5 things that you can do with a stimulus check or any windfall. So that's real brief synopsis of, some of the financial education pieces that we can talk about. Again, I have 150. If you're interested in knowing what some of those are, be glad to share that information with you. If you would like to conduct a trial workshop, I'd be glad to do that as well. And I've found that, a lot of the companies that we have these programs with, we let their employees, tell us what they need help with. And a lot of times, again, I think the first one is, what am I going to do with all the student loan debt? So, but it can go all the way to estate planning with everything in between. So that's all I got.
So what questions and things, let's kind of work and get some conversation going since we've got a few more minutes this morning. What questions do y'all have for Greg? Just kind of about financial wellness and specifically more within your workplace. How can you incorporate this into your wellness programs? This is the time to kind of pick his brain of what works best, what doesn't, and how you can improve your own wellness program by kind of adding this in. So you can feel free to either put your questions in the chat or to unmute and ask yourself.
And I'll actually ask a broader question, which is, I mean, do you all think this is an issue? Have you seen staff, employees, you know, in your circle, you know, are you feeling this issue more than you were before? Or do you think it's the same? So Greg, I will ask, there's one question that popped up here. Netta was saying, you know, educating children on finances is important. Is there a program on that, or maybe just a, you know, a thought process that you may share for what, you know, people can do with regard to their kids? Where should the focus be?
Are we talking about young children then?
I mean, my assumption is it's got to be probably teens. Let's talk about teens. Young kids possibly, but you know, kids that start to have some money or start to need to know what money, you know, how you should handle it.
I do, as a matter of fact, when I was teaching high school, when we got finished, and most of my kids loved this. These were teenagers. We would talk about, hey, have you ever, you know, done a financial plan? What's that, Mr. Clark? Well, do you know how much money you're making, and you know where that money's going? You know, do you have any idea? So I had a very you know, simple spreadsheet that we would look at, and it generated a lot of questions. Some of these, you know, kids had part-time jobs, so I'd say, well, how much do you make? And then we'd put that number down and say, oh, we got to take money out for taxes. And they go, taxes? I said, yeah. I said, why are we paying taxes? He said, are we paying taxes for people that don't work? I said, well, that's a different conversation. But it was interesting. You know, we took their cell phone bill out, and you know, said, well, this is how much money, you know, you have left to spend. And so they enjoy doing that. So I will say, you know, I don't think, well, I do know, my wife's a teacher, that, you know, these type of classes aren't being taught in school. And then for our younger children, you know, we have piggy banks, you know, that we'll give our clients, and you know, it's got some little information there about, you know, start saving. I know piggy banks are old school, but I remember them, and I remember having one. So yeah, we do have, you know, there are things that we can talk about with kids as well.
I'll ask a question, Greg. Kind of looking post-pandemic, what conversations and things or programs have you seen that have been asked most prevalently for you to speak on? Like, kind of what are people wanting to know right now as we're coming out of the pandemic? Yeah,
and on a broader scale, what most people are wondering about is how long is this good economy going to last? And quite frankly, you know, all the stimulus that got pumped in to the program, all these checks that have been given out, you know, that kind of kept us from going into a very, you know, deep recession. You know, prior to the pandemic, you know, we were predicting, you know, a recession because we hadn't had one for about 10 or 12 years, you know, by early this year. Well, obviously the pandemic accelerated that process. And one of the first things that we started to talk about when that happened was, you know, we think this is overdone. We know the Fed and the central bank, they're going to be accommodative during this period of time. So, you know, we got a recession maybe a year or two earlier, but then we also had it didn't last very long. You know, recessions can typically last about 18 months. You know, this one lasted maybe 2 months. So again, I think with the fiscal policy and the economy and everything, so now people are saying, okay, as the economy starts to open back up, you know, what do we need to be looking for? Well, quite frankly, we need to be looking at, you know, people going back to work. You know, these unemployment benefits have to end, you know, at some point. So, you know, what's that going to look like for the economy? So, quite frankly, you know, 75% of our economy is based on consumer spending. So we need folks out there working again and spending money. And that's kind of what the stimulus was able to do, you know, when there was so many people laid off. So, you know, what's next in the economy? You know, we don't have a crystal ball, but we don't have any indications of anything. So far as the economy's opened up, you know, slowly, we've seen nothing but, you know, positive aspects on the horizon. But we get a lot of that, you know, what's next?
So again, I'm going to restate that or repose that question. Again, what have you all seen? I mean, in terms of, do you feel like this is a stressor that's in existence in your population, or not, or you think it's a non-issue?
I'll read the comment from the chat that says, I do feel financial management or wellness has been a continuous issue in the workplace, but has been exacerbated with COVID, causing rise in some health issues, especially hypertension. So financial stress caused continued rise in poor management. I've seen that within my workplace as well. I think hypertension rates have skyrocketed within the past few months. And I think that is kind of a direct correlation to financial wellness. So what else have y'all seen, good or bad, that's come?
Well, I will say through my experience, and I did mention this more, I think, with the pandemic, I think these stressors were increased, probably exponentially. And I will tell you too, that people will have financial stress and they won't talk about it, whether they're embarrassed or what have you. But I can almost guarantee you that it's out there in the workplace. It's just not talked about.
I agree. There are a number of issues that I see, people who are trying to work at home and take care of their kids who have issues at home, who have needs, and they have resources that they completely have to retool their home. They're not prepared for it. Their pockets are not deep enough for it. They don't know how to implement things like that cost effectively, and they pay for it on two ends. I think it's an opportunity to teach the younger generation about planning, but it's just hard when you're under stress to do the teaching.
Right. And that's where we would come in. We'll do this for you. Like I said, I'm passionate about financial education, and I pretty much have been my whole career. I had again, I've been doing this for a while. I've enjoyed it, but again, the teaching part has really come more to light with everything that's been going on. And you saw my family. I raised two millennials, so kind of know what they're going through. They don't talk much. They're on their iPads and iPhones, and not having conversations with people.
What about another question for everybody is, have you all, I mean, what's leadership done? Meaning, I want to tie this in a little bit, just in terms of just kind of, we'll say, mental health and just keeping the stressors down. What has your leadership done, whether it relates to financial or other stressors that are happening? What have they done here in the past, 6, 9, 12 months to help alleviate or attempt to alleviate?
I'll say one thing that the company has done is they actually did a really good job transitioning to a at-home workplace during early pandemic, which helped relieve a lot of stress because I was able to keep most of my employees still working. So that was really beneficial. And then just offering other avenues for like stress relief. So not necessarily financial planning, like this has been great information, but offering to help pay for like workout programs or offering workout programs for at home or something to like relieve stress in a different avenue. But I do kind of like this more direct approach of like offering a financial wellness, plan and community and information to the staff. So this has been great information.
Thank you. I think, we've all been in survival mode, the last 14 months. We didn't talk about what our poor pets are going to do when we have to go back to work, but, probably remote work is going to be here, in some form. So, that's going to actually probably force us to address some other issues. If we're not having the physical, contact. One of the best things about going to work is you have a place to go. and this is just me. I like being around people. I like people. I feed off of that. So, you know, as we start to open up and we're going to reintroduce people back into the workplace, I think maybe some of these issues are going to come to fruition more because we're not just at home trying to make it day to day.
Well, you know, I'll share. I mean, we're a small company, but I'm going to see if I can get the skids rolling here. You know, we're a small company, but one of the things that we did was just simply communicate more. I know we've talked about this in past meetings. Communicate more. And one of the things that we talked about, and we were maybe in a position we were able to do this. We had made a decision. We weren't going to let anybody go. We weren't going to reduce salaries. We weren't going to do any of that. That just wasn't going to be a part of our future. And, you know, we shared that, and it didn't eliminate everything. I mean, part of the feedback that we got was, you know, to be candid, it was, hey, I'm not the only one that's got an income. You know, I've got a spouse, or I've got, you know, my kids I'm thinking about who are grown and out there, and they're all concerned about what was going to happen. So again, I think just having that communication, it helped. It didn't eliminate everything. People were still thinking about it. So that's why I know it's still a, you know, it is a prominent issue, because even if somebody has a job and income, there's still other things happening. There's and there's uncertainty.
I'll read another one that was just put in the chat. It says, corporate and locally, there has been an increase in information about the EAP programs, highlighting the resources available for financial and mental wellness and topics specifically related to COVID. I've also seen an increase in communication from the company that administers our 401k. And then there was another one that I missed of someone saying they've offered several online webinars and courses related to mental health and regularly reminding them of the EAP. So when they are, I guess, are undergoing some of that financial or other stress, they're being pointed to those directions to help with that. So it's kind of neat to see where people are kind of headed in the direction, at least putting a focus on it.
Well, so I'll tell you what, Greg, maybe share if there's you know, anything last that you want to share. And then what we're going to do is we will, of course, post this and post Greg's contact information on the website, you know, not just the recording, but also the information that he shared. And so we'll post that so you have ability to contact, and that'll be up in the next couple of days. But Greg, any closing thoughts with regard to financial wellness?
Oh, again, I appreciate the opportunity. I guess one of the biggest points that I just realized when we were talking about this is, you know, a lot of times we don't know why people are stressed because they don't talk about it. So, you know, obviously there's personal issues there too. There's this list, I haven't seen it in a while, about the top 100 things, you know, that causes people stress, and, you know, loss of a spouse or a job, you know, that's up there. But, you know, financial matters probably round out the next 2 or 3 that are up there. So people don't talk about it. So, and again, raising millennials and the young folks in the workforce, they don't talk about much of anything. So again, I think a lot of them are probably feeling this stress, and it's financial related. They don't know what to do about it, and they don't want to talk about it, unfortunately.
Well, with that, we appreciate you all taking the time to join us. Greg, thanks so much for sharing your expertise with us. We appreciate that.
It was a pleasure. Nice meeting you all virtually. Hope to see you again soon.
And yeah, and with that, I mean, what I wanted to share is the exciting news that I told Greg. He gets the esteemed position of being hopefully the last ever, you know, only virtual. We are going to be back live at Baptist East Milestone on June 17th, 21. So mark that date on your calendar. We hadn't, I don't know that we set a time. I'm going to say that it will probably have a a welcome back breakfast-ish event, starting a little earlier than when we have our live speaker. But anyway, make plans for that again, and we'll get used to saying again, third Thursday every month, Baptist East Milestone. We hope to be back there, and you'll get information here shortly on that. So thanks very much. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.